Welcome to Antilogarithm. In this lesson, I would like to show you how to find the antilog of numbers. Let's get started. What's an antilogarithm? An antilogarithm is a number whose logarithm is a given number. It is denoted by 10 raised to power x. So for an instance, we are given the logarithm of a number and the logarithm is 2.4537. So in this scenario, we can say we have the expression 10 raised to power 2.4537. As you can see here, 10 raised to power s, the s that we have there is this logarithm number. Then determining this through our antilog table in our 4-figure table, all we need to do is to check 0.45 under 3 difference 7, or using the calculator we can determine the value directly, but I'm going to show you all this in our examples. So you should have something like this. Position of decimal point in antilogarithm. In order to locate where the decimal point should be positioned after determining the antilog of a number, 1 should be added to the characteristic, and we have this formula: decimal point position equals to characteristic plus 1. Reference position for antilogarithm. Reference position for antilogarithm can be obtained before the first digit of an antilogarithm number. For an instance, we have this number 2191. So how do we know where the reference position will be? Well, the reference position will be before this 2, because 2 is the first digit here. So the reference position will be located here before the 2. What to note when determining the position of decimal point in antilogarithm? If the characteristic of an antilog of a number is positive after adding 1 to it, then the position of decimal should be to the right. For an instance, we're given the log of a number 0.3406. If we determine the antilog, we have the value 2191. If you remember, our reference position will be before the first digit of this antilog number. So, and that will be 2. So our reference position will be before this 2. So in such case, we're going to look at our characteristic right here. The characteristic we have here is 0. So we add 1 to it. If you remember the formula, decimal point position equals to characteristic plus 1. So we are adding 1 to this 0, and that will give us 1. Okay, so the next thing for us to do now is to count to the right hand side. If you remember from this, if we have the answer to be positive after adding 1 to this characteristic, that means we are making our counting to the right hand side. Okay, so let me show you that. Okay, so we'll make our counting from this reference position. So when we added 0 plus the 1, we have 1 as the value. So that means we're going to count 1 place. So we'll count from this reference position 1. So that means our decimal will be located here. Since we counted only 1, so our decimal will be located in this position. So our final answer there should be 2.191. So let's look at another example there. We have 2.3406. So in this particular example, the log is given, and then we obtain the antilog to be 2191. So remember that the reference position will be located before the 2. So reference position is located before the 2. So having known that reference position is here, so the next thing will be for you to add 1 to the characteristic here. So the characteristic that we have here is 2. So when we add 1 to it, 2 plus 1, that will give 3. So 3 is positive. So that means we're going to count to the right hand side. So let's see the counting now. We'll count from this reference position towards right. So let's see the counting. You remember 2 plus 1, that's 3. So let's count the 3. 1, 2, and 3. That means our decimal position will be located here. So our decimal position will be here. And then we have our final answer to be 219.1. Considering more example, if your value is positive after adding 1 to the characteristic. So we have this example right here. We've been given the log, which is 4.3406. So when we check our antilog table, we have the value 2191. Okay, so we'll locate our reference position first, and our reference position will be before the 2. So if the reference position is before the 2, and the next thing to do now is to add 1 to the characteristic. So our characteristic here is 4 plus 1, and that gives 5. If you look at it, the 5 is positive. That means we're going to count to the right hand side. So let me show you how to do the counting. Okay, so we're going to count 5 now. So remember, we added 1 to this 4, making 5. So let's do the counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you notice now, we only have 4 digits here, and since we are going to 5 count, so after the 4 digits now, when we count the next count, which is the 5, we have to use 0 to fill in this place. So we counted from here 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. We use 0 to fill in the value there. That means our decimal point will be after that 0. Okay, so our final answer in this scenario will be 21910. So we can actually neglect the decimal point. Okay, so let's look at another example. We have 5.3406. In this scenario, we've been given the log, and then we determine the antilog, and the antilog of the number is 2191. Okay, our reference position will be located before this 2, and then the next thing will now be for us to add 1 to the characteristic. Our characteristic here is 5. Adding 1 to it, that's 5 plus 1, that gives 6. So if that is 6, so that means we are counting to the right hand side. Remember, if it is positive, the value obtained after adding 1 to the characteristic, if it is positive, that means we are counting to the right hand side. So let me show you the counting. So we are counting from our reference position. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see that we've covered all the 4 digits in that number. Then after counting 5 now, we have to fill in 0. Then we're going to count 6 again. 6, and we'll fill in 0. That means our decimal point will be located here. You can see. So that means in this scenario, since this decimal is the last thing that we have in this number, so we can neglect the decimal, and then our final answer will be 219100. Another thing to note when determining the position of decimal point in antilogarithm: if the characteristic of an antilog of a number is 0 after adding 1 to it, then the position of decimal should be at the reference position. Okay, for an instance, we have the logarithm of this, which is bar 1.3406. Okay, When we determine the antilog, we have the value 2191. So in this scenario, we need to locate our reference point first, and the reference position will be before these 2. So our reference position will be here before the 2. The next thing will now be, if you look at the characteristic that we have here is bar 1. So bar 1 means minus 1. So when we add 1 to this bar 1, that's minus 1 plus 1. That will give us 0. Because we have 0, that means our decimal will be located at the reference position. You can see right here. So our decimal will be located in that position, and then we have to fill in 0 to this place. So point of note here, anytime you have bar 1 here, after which you've worked out your logarithm, and then you are now left alone to determine the antilog, and you have bar 1, then you definitely know that when you add 1 to this bar 1, it will give you 0. In such scenario, you know that your decimal point will be at the reference position. One more thing to note when determining the position of decimal point in antilogarithm. Well, if the characteristic of an antilog of a number is negative after adding 1 to it, then the position of decimal should be to the left. For an instance, we are given this log bar 2.3406. So when we determine the antilog of this number, we have 2191, and the next thing to do is to locate the reference position. So our reference position will be before this 2, and then through the reference position, that will help us to locate where our decimal point will be. Okay, so the next thing to do will be to add 1 to this characteristic. So our characteristic in this number is bar 2. So bar 2 means minus 2. So when we add 1 to minus 2, we have minus 2 plus 1, and that's going to give us minus 1. So that means we're going to count 1 to the left hand side. So let's try to do the counting now from our reference position. 1, and then we use 0 to fill in this position. Then our decimal will be here. Since we only have 1, you know, we have minus 2 plus 1, and that gives us 1. So that's the reason why we are counting only 1 to the left hand side, and then our decimal will be here, point. And then we have to fill in 0 before this dot. That will be 0.02191. Okay, let's look at another example. In this example, we have bar 3.3406. So we are given this log, and then we have to determine the antilog. So the antilog will be 2191. Okay, first thing, get your reference position. So the reference position will be the first digit in this number, and the first digit is 2. So reference position is located before the first digit. Okay, so the next thing will now be for us to add 1 to this characteristic. So bar 3 means minus 3. So minus 3 plus 1, that will give us the value of minus 2. So that means we're going to count 2 towards the left hand side. Okay, so let me try to show you how to do that. So from our reference position, we're going to count 1. So we have to fill in that place with 0, and then we count 2. We fill in that place with 0. you remember that when we added 1 to this bar 3, it gives us bar 2, that is minus 2. So, and we've counted 2 now. 1, 2. That means our decimal point will be located here. And we have 0.002191. So, we can put 0 at the beginning before this decimal. And we have 0.002191 as our final answer. Now is the time to show you the very first example. Okay, in this example, we actually use the 4-figure table to find the antilogarithms of the following numbers: 2.6542 and 4.0516. So we start with the first one, the antilog of 2.6542. In order to determine the antilog of this, all we need to do is to go into the 4-figure table, the antilog section, and then check 0.65 under 4, then difference 2. Okay, so let's do that. We are the antilog right now. Okay, let me quickly show you around. If you look at the beginning of this antilog, we have 0.00. That's the starting. The number starting is 0.00, and the one ending it here is 0.99. Okay, then this number from 0 to 9 is the under, and you can see we have values under it. Then from 1 to 9, this value you see right here, 1 to 9, that is called the difference, and you can see values under it too. So we're given the question to look for the antilog of 0.65 under 4 difference 2. So let's try to do that. 0.65. So let's locate where 0.65 is. 0.65 is around here. 0.65. So we have to trace it under 4. So trace it under 4. If you can see right here. If you can't get it rightly, trace it to the under 4 on top. This is the 4. So we have 65 under 4. That's 0.65 under 4. That will give us 4508. And then the next thing is the difference. And our difference is 2. So let's trace it to the difference. Difference of 2. So if you trace it up, you can see right here, this is the difference. So that means our 0.65 under 2 and under 4 difference 2. So the difference now is 2. So all we need to do, what we got for this one, 0.65 under 4, we'll add the difference to it. So we got 4508. So when we add these 2 to it, we'll have 4510. Okay, our value will be 4510. Okay, having gotten that from the table, the next thing to do now is to locate where the decimal point will be. If you look in our lessons, we talked about you adding 1 to the characteristic. So our characteristic right here is 2. When we add 1 to it, it becomes 3. So ask yourself this simple question: that 3, is it positive or negative? Okay, it is positive. Since it is positive, that means we're going to count our decimal to the right hand side. So let's try to do that. But before we do that, you remember that we talked about the reference position in our lesson. So reference position is before this 4, because 4 is the first digit in this number. So our reference position is around here. So all we need to do is to count from here. We added 1 to this characteristic, and that gives us 3. So let's try to count now. Okay, counting from our reference position, we'll have 1, 2, and 3. That means our decimal will be in this position. So if you remember that we have 2 plus 1, that's we add 1 to the characteristic and we got 3, and that's the reason why we counted 3 from our reference position. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll put our decimal here. So our final answer there will be 451.0. So we can also say we can neglect the 0, since 451.0 is the same thing as saying 451. Okay, let's look at the B part. We are looking for the antilog of 4.0516. So what we do here, we're going to check the antilog of 0.05 under 1 difference 6. So let's go into our 4-figure table to do that. Okay, we're at our 4-figure table now under antilog. So we're going to check 0.05 under 1 difference 6. So 0.05 is here under 1, so that's this. So you can see 1 here under 1. So 0.05 under 1 is 1125. Then difference 6. So let's trace it to difference 6. And difference 6 is 2. We trace it up. You can see 6 right here. Difference 6 is 2. So we add 2 plus our value here, which is 1125 plus 2. That will give us 1127. Okay, then the value for our antilog of 4.0516, we got 1127. And the next thing to do now is to locate where our decimal point will be. So if you look at this number, our reference position will be before this 1. So our reference position, then the next thing will be to add 1 to this characteristic. 4 plus 1, that will give us 5. So is 5 positive or negative? 5 is positive, so we are counting to the right hand side. Okay, so let's count from our reference position. We're counting 5 because we added 4 plus 1 and that gives us 5. So we are counting 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we count 5, and we fill in that position with 0 since we don't have any other number. So you know it's 5 count. That means our decimal will be here. You can see that. Okay, so this will be the position of our decimal. Okay, in this particular number now, since we have decimal as our last thing, that means we can neglect the decimal and have our answer to be 11270 as our final answer. Okay, let's look at the example 2. In this example, we are asked to determine the antilogarithm of the following numbers: 3.6542 and 0.5820. Okay, we'll start with the first one, which is the A part. We are looking for the antilog of 3.6542. Okay, in this particular example, we're going to be making use of our calculator to determine the antilog. So if you need to make use of a 4-figure table, you can do that too to work it out. So let me show you how to do that. Put on your calculator, and then the first thing you should ask yourself, is this number 3.6542 the starting number that we have here, which is the characteristic? Is it positive or negative? Okay, 3 is positive, so that means you can use your calculator to solve the antilog directly. So let me show you how to do that. If you look at on top of your log, we have something like 10 raised to power s here. This is the antilog. In order for you to get to the antilog, all you need to do is to press down your shift or some calculators might have second function. So press it down and it's going to indicate right here, shift or second function, and then press log, so it will show 10. This sign means exponential, 10 exponential s. Then s is the value that you will enter into it. So the value that we have there is 3.6542. Then press equals to or enter, and that's going to give the value of 4510. So our antilog should be 4 digits. So anything after this last 4 digits will be approximated. So if we approximate this to 2 will give 0. If we add the 0 to this 0, it will still be 0 that we have here. So our final answer there will be 4510. Okay, so that's our final answer. Then the next thing to look at is the B part now. The B part, we are looking for the antilog of 0.5820. Okay, ask yourself first, is this characteristic, is it positive or negative? Well, the characteristic that we have here is positive because it's not having bar, so it's positive. So in such scenario, we can make use of our calculator directly to find our antilog. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, we're looking for the antilog of 0.5820. So press your shift or second function, log, and press 0.5820 and press equals to or enter. So that will give 3.819. Then if you need to approximate, your antilog should be 4 figure, that's 4 digits. So if you count the 4 digits, 3, 8, 1, 9. So we are supposed to stop at 9. So if there needs to be any approximation, you approximate to this last 4 digits. So approximation of this last number now, 4, will give 0. So if you approximate it, 0 plus 9, we still have 9 here. So our final answer there should be 3.819. Okay, our final answer is 3.819. You can see how easy it is to make use of your calculator to determine your antilogarithm. Now is the time to show you the example 3. In this example, we asked to determine the antilogarithm of the following numbers: bar 1.6008 and bar 2.0935. So let's start with the A part, which is bar 1.6008. Okay, the first thing you should ask yourself, the characteristic here, which is bar 1, is it positive or negative? Well, since this is bar and bar means minus, so it means this one is -1, -1, so that means it is negative. In such scenario, we cannot make use of our calculator directly to determine the antilog. So what do I mean by that? I mean you cannot just press the antilog of -1.6008, because when you do that, you're going to get a wrong answer. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that using your calculator. If you're using your 4-figure table, all you need to do is to check 0.60 under 0 difference 8. If you're using your calculator like me, okay, put on your calculator and let me show you how to do that. Okay, so press your shift or second function, log, to get your antilog, and then press 0.6008 and press equals to or enter. So in this particular result that is given to us, we only need 4 digits without the decimal. So we don't need the decimal, we need 4 digits: 3, 9, 8, 8. So if there needs to be any approximation, that you can see the last 4 digits here. We have to approximate to the last 4 digits. So the numbers before it, if we approximate the 4 will give 0. That means we still have 8 here. So that means the number that will be obtained from this place will be 3988 without the decimal. So we have the value 3988. So the next thing will now be, where will the decimal point be? Okay, in order to locate the decimal point, if you look at in our lesson, we talked about that if you have bar 1 here as your characteristic, you add 1 to it, you get the value of 0. That means that the decimal point will be located at the reference position. Okay, so our reference position will be before this 3, so our reference position will be here. That means our decimal point will be at that reference position. Okay, having gotten that, then the next thing will be to fill in the value of 0 before the point, and we'll have this as our final answer, 0.3988. So let's look at the B part. We are looking for the antilog of bar 2.0935. So the first thing you should ask yourself here, is this characteristic right here, is it negative or positive? Well, it is negative because it's having bar 2. So the bar is minus. So bar 2 there is negative. So we cannot use our calculator to determine the value directly. So all we need to do, we make use of a work around it. So let me try to show you that. Okay, so the workaround, press your shift log to get your antilog, and then press 0.0935, 0.0935, and press equals to or enter. That will give 1240. We only need 4 digits here without the decimal, so we don't need the decimal, and we only need 4 digits. If there is any approximation you need to do to the last 4 digits, so 0 here is the last 4 digits, so you just do the approximation, but the approximation of the number before it will give 0, so that means it won't have any effect on this 0. So because when you approximate 2, it will give 0, and 0 plus 0 will still be 0. So we now have the 4 digits that we're making use of from here will be 1240. Okay, so we are 1240. So the next thing now will be, where will my decimal point be? In order to know your decimal point, okay, get your reference position. Your reference position will be before the 1, before this one. That's where the reference position will be. So bar 2 plus 1, so you have to add 1 to the characteristic. I show you how to do this in our lesson. So bar 2 plus 1, that's minus 2 plus 1, and that's going to give minus 1. So if that is minus 1, that means you're counting to the left hand side because it's negative. You're counting to the left hand side. So let me show you that. So since our reference position is here, so we count from this our reference position 1, and then we fill in 0 there, and then we put our decimal here. That's where we counted to. You know our reference position is here, so we counted 1, and our decimal will be here, and then we have to put 0 to start this number, and we have 0.01240. So our final answer will be 0.01240. Or we can neglect this last 0, and then we have the value of 0.0124 as our final answer.